Yogamont, who sounds like a failed Pokemon, asks how that is possible. He thought no human could handle that kind of power. He even drags the Dragon King into it, saying that guy cannot show up either because of that very fact. Creepy Grandpa claps back, saying my glorious king is more dangerous than the fragments of light, and he is going to take care of it himself. He asks if anyone wants to back him up. Tarnak basically says no thanks. He tells Silent if he picks a fight with Drippy Woo, he is signing his own death certificate. He reminds them all that my glorious king is one of the 9. He tells them to just wait for the Dragon King instead of getting folded like the last idiot who tried, but Creepy Grandpa insists that this is their best shot while Drippy Woo is still stuck in his human form, so now is the only time, saying that if no one offered their help, he would handle it solo and delete my glorious king from the map. But Tarnak and Yogamont looked at him and went to say, hell no, telling him to do whatever he wants, as they are not trying to get burned like the Monarch of White Flames. Raken steps out of his furry little corner and tells Creepy Grandpa he is in. Tarnak gives him a side eye and reminds him what happened to the Monarch of White Flames, who got clapped and then had to join Team Drippy forever. He warns that once my glorious king beats your ass, you do not get a respawn screen. You just get shoved into his shadow army. Raken says, chill. That only works if they are not in their real forms. The Shadow Monarch cannot turn a full-power monarch into a puppet, or at least not yet. But Tarnak is not done being the voice of reason. He spills the tea that the Shadow Monarch is now working with the Architect. That means even original forms might get drafted into the Afterlife army. He and Yogamont bounce after that. They want no part in becoming accessories in Drippy Woo's world domination arc. Once they are gone, Raken hits Creepy Grandpa with the big question, is Drippy Woo still even human? Creepy Grandpa pulls out a dagger he used earlier and says, look, this had poison on it, saying that the OG Shadow Daddy would never use petty tricks like these. The Bug Lady hears this and actually listens. She says, yeah, if he was fully merged with the body, he would not need tricks. Creepy Grandpa asks her to join the squad, and she agrees. And just like that, the Beast Boy, Bug Lady, and Creepy Grandpa took off to throw hands with my glorious king. Meanwhile, Drippy Woo is standing on top of some building looking for Creepy Grandpa. But there is no magic to sense. He thinks back to the fight. Grandpa said he had no shadow and was in his true form. He remembers what the giant monarch told him, that rulers and monarchs in their original forms cannot be turned into shadows. So whatever he fought back then must have been the real deal. Back at the association headquarters, the suits are having a meeting to pick a new chairman. It has been a week since Gun-Hee kicked the bucket, and without him, the guilds are getting rowdy. They were concerned that with no one keeping them in check, things might go sideways. The old man was S rank, which gave the position some weight. They talk about the risk of giving power to an outsider, and in the end, all fingers point to Jinchul. Jinchul looks stunned and asks why him. The directors explain that he worked closely with the chairman. He knows how to lead. He knows how to control hunters. He does not need to be S rank. He just needs to be respected and feared. They tell him he has the connections and the reputation. No one else fits the role like he does. They do not force it on him. They just ask him to think about it. Jinchul nods and says he will. Cut to the U.S., where Thomas Andre and Laura are riding an elevator into the underground vault of the Scavenger Guild. Thomas says it has been a while since he came down here. As they walk, Laura asks if he is really planning to give that weapon away. Thomas says, do you think the lives of me and the guild were not worth it? Laura says that is not what she meant. Thomas turns and asks if she thinks Drippy Woo could not handle it. They stop in front of the weapon. Thomas stares at it and says it still looks unreal. Laura, wanting to be the voice of reason, tells Thomas exactly how precious these weapons were. So much so that there are only 2 weapons like this on the whole damn planet. Also reminding him that number is never going up. Thomas agrees. Then, with full billionaire energy, he says, yep, that is why I'm giving it away. There's no point letting the best weapon on Earth rot in a vault. Meanwhile, in Korea, Gina is watching the news. She sees Jinchul just got promoted to chairman and decides the world is officially unstable. Handsome men rising to power right after murder cases. Sounds about right. She hugs her mom, who is just trying to do dishes, and gets hit with a classic mom line. If you have time to stand there, go take out the trash. Gina says she is too lazy, then flips the conversation and says they should move. Her mom says no, she likes this old place. Gina says, why though? Her mom tells her to go check the laundry instead, but when Gina opens the door, she stops breathing and starts running for her mom, screaming her name. Cut to outside the Ogden Guild headquarters, where reporters are swarming the place. Word got out that Thomas Andre is inside. Jinho is sweating bricks because not only is Thomas here, but Leonard Newman, the top German hunter, is also chilling in the office. Jinho is trying not to panic. He thinks it has been 2 hours since they showed up, and Drippy Woo still has not picked up the damn phone. Leonard is also feeling the tension. Goliath himself is looking for Drippy Woo. He wonders if today is the day they meet. Thomas asks a question, and Laura translates. Is Drippy Woo on a raid? Does he just never show up to work? Jinho stammers out a yes. But right then, the main character finally walks in. Drippy Woo strolls into the office like he did not just ghost everyone for 2 hours. He sees the crowd of reporters and clocks Thomas sitting there. Jinho looks like he is about to cry and asks where he has been. Drippy Woo just says there have been a lot of gates lately. No time to slack off. Thomas stands up and says, long time no see. Jinho is frozen. Is this about to be a rematch? Drippy Woo asks what brings Thomas to Korea. Thomas says they were supposed to eat together once his arm healed, and he brought a gift. Drippy Woo raises an eyebrow. Thomas says they should move somewhere else because the gift is not safe to open in the middle of the office. Drippy Woo immediately thinks this man just brought a bomb. Jinho is 2 seconds from calling security. Drippy Woo then looks at the second guy and asks who he is. Leonard introduces himself politely. Drippy Woo figures he wants protection, but before anything else happens, Thomas says, let us go. Leonard gets ready to follow them. Thomas hits him with a reality check. Who said you are coming with us? Leonard was already on edge. Man had been waiting over 2 hours for my glorious king and decided he earned a seat at the big boy table, but Thomas was not having it. He shut Leonard down with a face that said, get your low-rank ass out of my sight. He said the meeting was above his pay grade and made it clear that no amount of waiting would make him important. And just like that, Leonard, the strongest hunter in Germany, got clowned. Leonard watched the whole thing like, damn, this is the first time someone treated me like background noise. Later on, my glorious king sat across from Thomas in a restaurant. Chill vibes, good food. Then Thomas hit the switch and pulled out a case like he was about to propose. He told his men to keep watch, then looked my glorious king dead in the eye and said he had waited too long for this. My glorious king could already feel something wild pulsing from inside the case. Thomas opened it and boom, 2 daggers fresh from a monster corpse that needed a whole government to handle. He told Drippy Woo that these babies came from Kamesh. Though Jin Woo is a dumbass, even he knew exactly what that meant. Turns out the Bureau only got what they were allowed to take. Thomas had Kamesh bite him like it was a petting zoo and kept the damn tooth as a memento. The man said the tooth was too stubby for a sword, so he made daggers instead. Drippy Woo took out the dagger, and as he saw the sweet power level of 1,500, he thought how Demon King's daggers that came from a monarch couldn't even compare to these bad boys. My glorious king was shook. Without wasting any time, he tried the blades, and even Thomas told him to be careful while holding the dagger, saying that even if he used his strongest skills, that dagger had the potential to slice through it like butter. My glorious king felt the mana welcome him like it knew its new owner. The whole place was sweating from the pressure. Laura looked like she wanted to snatch the weapons back. Thomas just smirked and asked if it was a mistake. Then he looked at my glorious king and said the gift was cheap compared to the lives that were saved. Before they could finish their meal, something massive hit their senses. They both stood up. The air had changed. My glorious king looked up and thought, is that what the doctor was talking about in the report? Because whatever that was, it felt like something ancient just woke up. Thomas looked up and straight up lost his mind. He said he had never seen one that damn big before. He even compared it to Kamish's gate and said this one made it look like a baby door. Then he dropped the classic, if the world is pulling this out now, maybe we are already too dumb to understand what's coming. While that existential crisis was happening, the civilians were busy being the most accurate representation of modern society. A massive gate split the sky open, and instead of running, they pulled out their phones like it was just another influencer stunt. Over in the US, Dr. Belzer was getting grilled by the suits. They wanted to know why Korea suddenly had a hole to hell hovering over it. Belzer hit them with the I told you so. He said he had been warning them about this big-ass mana build up for days, but nobody listened. And he said this was just the start. Gates like this would start showing up all over the place. Back in Korea, Mr. Aura Farmer was up in the sky riding Kaisel. heading towards that massive ass gate. But when he tried to fly into the gate, he hit something he could not pass. No matter how strong he was, this thing was not budging. It felt like the gate itself was saying, "Not today, King." He stared at it, thinking whatever was inside was on a whole different level, something even he might not be ready for. But below that gate was everything he cared about. And he sure as hell was not letting anything drop down and ruin it all. Right then, he got a call from Chairman Wu. My glorious king asked if they found anything. The chairman said they had scanned the whole planet, and not a single other gate had popped up. This one was special, and the plan was to start moving people out before something bad dropped out of it. He asked what the king planned to do next. Next day, at the Hunter Association Gymnasium, Mr. Aura Farmer was in warm-up mode. But his version of warm-up was turning Baru into a practice dummy. Baru threw hands like his life depended on it, but none of it landed. Rizzy Wu was just that good now. He blocked Baru with one hand like he was swatting flies, then asked if Baru was even trying. Baru stood there looking humble as hell, saying he would never dare to hold back strength on his king. Rizzy Wu grinned and told him it was fine. All he wanted was a little workout, and Baru was the only one who could even give him that. With those words of motivation filled Baru with a new energy, so the drama queen tried again, this time even harder. But Rizzy Wu dodged it easily. But he did notice Baru had leveled up since getting promoted to commander. He warned him, though, there is only one commander. Once Iris and Greed hit general rank, they might want that throne. If Baru wanted to keep his crown, he had better stay sharp. That fired Baru up even more. He came swinging with everything he had. But Rizzy, who just stood there thinking, this still isn't it. Even his top shadow soldier was not strong enough for what was coming. Baru charged in again. But Rizzy Wu grabbed him mid-swing and yeeted him into the ground. Then he smashed Baru's ribs with a punch so hard it sent him straight into a wall. Baru got up talking about how amazed he was by his king's strength. My glorious king watched the whole thing and joked he needed to block Baru from watching historical dramas before his delusions got worse. As he saw the state that their little spar has left the gym in cleanup duty, kicked in after that. Knowing that his dumb ass could get in trouble for it, Jinwoo hit up Chairman Wu like, "Hey, don't freak out, but I got around 300 giant ants who know how to mop." Meanwhile, Thomas, Andre, and Laura were on standby. Laura asked Thomas if they were heading back to the States. Thomas turned to her and said, "Hell no." He said he could not walk away from something this grand and beautiful. Laura squinted at the gate and asked him how he can say that abomination beautiful. Hearing her, Thomas just smiled and said anything that makes the heartbeat faster is beautiful. Fire-breathing dragons, world-ending gates, drippy woo, all of it. Thomas then told her that there was no point going back to US, as there wasn't any gate in the US anyway. Seeing that she was concerned about him, he turned to Laura and told her not to worry, as the only safe place left on the whole damn Earth was near the man who broke physics for fun, so they are as safe as they could be. And if my glorious king could not stop it here, there was no later. Evacuation orders went out the next day. But at Drippy Woo's place, Gina was not having it. She asked her mom why they were not packing. Her mom said if this was going to be the battlefield, she wanted to choose where they died. Plus, their house was outside the zone. Gina threw a fit. She said she was about to be a college girl, had plans to drink and live alone and not die under some giant death cloud. Her mom just smiled and told her not to worry. Drippy Woo would protect them just like her dad once did. Back on a rooftop, Rizzy Woo sat alone, eyes locked on the gate. He wondered if he could close it without blood. Then he pulled out his phone, thought about who he would want to be with if the world really ended. Somewhere else, Mommy Cha was deep in training. Her master watched her movements and said her sword had started hesitating. Maybe fear was creeping in. Before she could respond, her phone rang. The master just smiled and said he was talking too much. A hunter should always pick up their calls. After a short chat with the mystery caller, Mommy Cha turned to her master and dipped out. Saying something came up, her master just stood there, all wise and smug, like he already knew what was going on. Next thing you know, my glorious king and Mommy Cha are strolling through an amusement park like they are on some budget drama date night. The crowd is losing it, seeing two top-tier hunters just casually vibing. Drippy Woo glanced around and said there were more people than he expected, which is hilarious, considering the country was probably half on fire again. Cha asked if he liked places like this. He said not really, but he always wanted to check it out. When she asked why he brought her here, he just dropped a friend card with zero warning. He told her she was the only friend he had, and she looked like someone just drop-kicked her heart into her lungs. Drippy Woo brought up the time in the double dungeon when she called them friends in front of that busted IKEA skeleton architect. She looked shook and asked if he actually heard that. He just smirked like a menace and said his ears work better than his emotions. Mommy Cha started thinking about how it had already been 2 years since she became a hunter, and how this was the first time in forever she actually felt like a person, instead of a walking nuke. She looked at my glorious king and caught a whiff of that signature energy no one else has. Then he asked if she wanted to try everything in the park. She smiled and said yes. They tried, but the rides were straight trash. Nothing could scare them. Not even the monsters pretending to be scary ended up looking more terrified than the guests. Eventually, they sat down for food, and Rizzy Woo hit her with the real talk, asking if she was having fun. She said yes, but he called her out, asking why she didn't scream once. Turns out S ranks don't feel much from roller coasters. He grinned and asked her if she wanted to ride something more fun. With that, he let her ride his dragon. The next thing we see is Kaizel flexing in the sky with both of them riding his back. Rizzy Woo asked how it felt, and Mommy Cha looked like she finally got that serotonin. She said it was fast, high, and beautiful. She asked why he even bothered with the park if he had this kind of ride ready to go, and he dropped the bomb. That park was built on the gate where his dad disappeared. He just wanted to say goodbye properly. Mommy Cha looked at him like she finally understood him and thanked him for being nothing but kind. Then he told her he still had one more thing to show. They ended the night sitting under the open sky watching the stars. A shooting star flew by, and for once the world shut up around them. Just peace for two monsters pretending to be human. The next day, some B-rank hunter was walking around acting like he was the main character, thinking a gate might open soon. He bumped into someone and started yelling about it, not realizing he just screamed at Doggo. The crowd started forming, ready for a fight, and this dumbass really said he was a relatively high-ranking hunter before demanding an apology. Doggo did not apologize. Doggo removed his head, and everyone around lost their minds. Then Doggo powered up, exploded the area, and sent all the hunters flying. He stood tall in the wreckage and said what everyone was dreading. "Listen closely, you lowly humans. From now on, I will start hunting you." He growled that his teeth and claws would shred through weak flesh like it was paper. Then he raised his voice and declared he was the king of beasts, the beast monarch, and told the world to stop him if they dared. Back in the woods, Mommy Cha was casually sipping lake water like she was living her cottagecore fantasy when my glorious king rolled up smooth as hell. He told her there was a hotel nearby with a solid breakfast and asked if she wanted to go wash up and eat. Then he summoned Kaizel like he was calling an Uber and said, "Let's bounce." Meanwhile, at the Hunter Association, someone was telling Chairman Wu that a monster was going full Godzilla on every hunter in the area. Jinchul asked about casualties and got hit with a big, "We do not know yet." That man was stressed. The gate break was still hours away, and now this random beast showed up uninvited. Jinchul asked where Drippy Woo was, and the dude hit him with, "We cannot reach him," which is basically code for, "We are all going to die." A little later, someone popped up saying a hunter strong enough to fight had arrived. Jinchul perked up and asked if it was my glorious king, but nope, it was some random guy who said he was world-class and just happened to be nearby, which is peak anime behavior. Leonard Neerman stood in front of Doggo trying to hype himself up, like maybe fate sent him here just for this moment, before Thomas Andre walked in, grabbed his head, and told him to sit down before he got folded. Back at the restaurant, my glorious king was living his best breakfast life with Mommy Cha until Chairman Wu finally got through and demanded to know where the hell he had been. Rizzy Woo just said he was out of the service zone. Jinchul dropped a situation report telling Jin Woo that a single monster was tearing through Seoul. Drippy Woo asked how many enemies, and when he heard it was only one, he got that face like, "Oh no, not again." He thought about all his shadow soldiers he had placed for recon and realized something was wrong. Their signals were weak, like something was choking them out. He turned to Mommy Cha and said something was happening in Korea. She asked if the dungeon broke, and he said, "Nah, this is something else." He then hit Jinchul with the most important question. Does the monster have a shadow? Because if not, we've got a whole invisible raid boss situation on our hands. Back on the battlefield, Leonard was calling out for Thomas like he was about to cry, while the other hunters were cheering because the Goliath showed up. Thomas looked at Doggo and said, "This beast clearly forgot where it stood." Both of them were pouring out mana like broken faucets. Doggo charged in first, but Thomas took the hit like it was a pillow fight, then smashed Doggo across the face before trying to follow up. Doggo dodged and came in swinging, but Thomas slammed him into the ground instead, showing that if anyone was about to get hunted, it was not going to be the Goliath. After some time, Discounted Azen also pulled up to the battlefield like he was about to save the day, but could do nothing except just stand there and ask for a situation report. One of the hunters told him folks were still running for their lives, and both the Fiend Guild and White Tiger Guild had been sent in. Eisen felt the mana in the air and instantly knew something was off. He thought my glorious king handled worse stuff during the Jew Island mess, but this felt nastier. He started wondering what kind of freak Thomas was fighting if it made that disaster feel like a warm-up. Back in the brawl, Doggo went flying through the sky like someone hit fast forward on a chew toy and crashed into a building. Thomas had decked him hard, but of course that mutt got up swinging like he hadn't just been turned into drywall. He slammed into Thomas and rocked his chest, but Thomas held it down. He snatched Doggo mid-move and slammed him into the ground, thinking he had it in the bag. But nope, Doggo booted him in the face and launched him into the air. Thomas landed clean, then started using reinforcement because now he knew this dog had hands. Over at the White Tiger Guild, their squad rolled up, and Hunter B told his people to stay sharp just as he said that something zoomed past and smashed into a building before anyone could blink. When the dust settled, there stood the nightmare fuel everyone had been whispering about. Beck locked eyes with Thomas, who was fully juiced up now. Thomas barked at them to get lost and take cover. Beck looked at Doggo and instantly knew this thing was built different. He thought about going beast mode too, but Doggo was already in his face before he could blink. Beck froze like a little brother who just broke the TV. He felt that primal warning that screamed, "Do not get noticed." Doggo walked past him, and Beck couldn't even lift his head. Doggo thought he was that guy and started levitating cars like he was doing magic tricks. He threw them all at Thomas, but stopped when he felt something weird. Thomas had grabbed hold of him with raw force and started dragging him in. When Doggo got close again, Thomas flipped him and smashed him straight into the pavement, then started swinging. But instead of folding, Doggo just caught his fist mid-hit like it was light work. Thomas felt that deep fear kick in like he already knew how this fight was going to end. Doggo stood up and called him a puppet of a fragment, then asked if he was scared before unleashing a beatdown while every hunter nearby just stood there useless and terrified. During the chaos, Doggo paused mid-fight and looked down like he just noticed something crawling on his shoe. He reached into Thomas's shadow and yanked out one of Mr. Aura Farmer's ant boys, then crushed it like it owed him money. Doggo then turned to Thomas with full disrespect and grabbed his neck. He asked if they should keep going and mocked him for acting strong. But when he shattered the armor and saw there was nobody inside, his face dropped. Thomas had pulled a fast one. He showed up behind Doggo, grabbed him, and told him to shut the hell up before snapping his neck like he was popping bubble wrap.